Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts. I'm so happy to be back, and I'm so grateful to the team for running things while I was away. And I'm in Calgary right now, so I always love telling you the time. It's 6:30 Calgary time. I'm 2 hours behind my normal Toronto. I'm so happy to be here with my co-host, who we'll introduce in a little bit. But we're here tonight with Sensei, Renshi, Professor, Coach Ely Camejo. And I want to start off with a question for you, Coach. And like we said, we're going to use probably all of your titles. And the one we probably won't use much is Ely because we like rank around here. Um, Sensei Dauphin is going to do a more full introduction of you in a little bit. But my question I have to bring up, you do Kobudo, you do kickboxing, you do BJJ, you do Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, you've medaled at tournaments and won gold in some of those disciplines. And what I want to ask you is, what would you say to somebody watching or listening is the most important way to blend standing, weapons, ground disciplines? Because a lot of people start with a single art, and we really love that idea around here, but might find it difficult to stay focused or train in one. So what would you offer as your way or the best way to maintain stand-up ground and weapons disciplines?
So it's hard to say because um, through the years when I first started martial arts, the first thing I ever did was boxing. So I box. So I already had a little bit of a stand up background. Then one day uh, I can tell you, like, for us, or for me, the best way of blending it in is um, joining a martial arts that actually have all of it. Something that teaches the striking, something that teaches the takedowns, uh, a little bit of grappling. It doesn't have to be a mixed martial arts academy. Like we are a jiu-jitsu academy and like a self-defense academy, and we blend all of that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I am sure that many other martial arts styles have the same thing. So it's just finding the right academy, the right coach that actually love what they do and are good at passing the information, and then it should be easy for you to learn.
And what if somebody's starting in one discipline and then shifting to another that's markedly different? How do you recommend that they, devote their time if they want to stay dedicated to the first and they're not necessarily blended at their academy?
Um, Look, and here I have that specific case. One student that likes mixed martial arts, for instance, but his main thing is kickboxing. So he trains all the time in kickboxing, and he does his jiu-jitsu classes. Now, when he is gonna fight in an MMA event. So what we do is that we have a specific training sessions for him, which it mixes everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, if the instructors are teaching you, they know all how to blend all of this, and you show interest for something like this, the instructor should be able to help you with this stuff.
Let's go around the horn on this one. Sensei Suino, you've got standing arts, you've got throwing arts, you've got weapons arts, you've got ground arts. How does somebody who's listening, who wants to maintain a classical through line, or at least really advance in a single art, maintain multiple ones?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between trying to become a master level in one martial art and become a fighter. It's just my opinion, but I think a fighter is a younger man's path,
Mm.
and I think it's a shorter path. And a master is a lifetime path. I think you pass through it. So I don't know. All my Japanese teachers told me I was doing too many things. I should quit a couple, right? Choose one. Um, but on the other hand, nobody else over there was training, you know, 6 or 9 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. So part of it is you have to train a lot. Uh, part of it is you have to have good teachers. For me, because I never fought competitively in mixed martial arts, I just wanted to be really, really good at each of the arts, right? So my
Right.
job was never to try to blend them. My job was always to try to teach each individual art as best as I could.
Thank you. Let's go to you, Hanshi Legacy. You're a black belt in sword. You're a 10th degree black belt in karate and white crane. What do you recommend for maintaining multiple disciplines, and how do you blend them?
Well, I've been uh, over the past couple of years, I've been like listening to people, and I can see where they get it all done. Like, but the thing is, they don't get to the full depth. Say you want to be a fighter, and you're going to go in MMA, for instance. There isn't much historical and philosophy and stuff like that. But if you're going to go into MMA and be a fighter like that, then I would consider that a little bit more like the sport as opposed to a martial art. You have to learn all the different ways to at least be able to recognize and use them in the ring, right? But you don't have to go to all the past philosophies and that to do it. So on a physical level, I can see why people do it. But to become a martial artist, you go to a person who is doing all these different things, or you go to a guy who has mastered, like Sensei Yamaguchi, for instance. You went to a guy who's gave his whole life to learn that one art. You go to people like that because they know the ins and outs. If you want to be just a fighter on a physical level, you can go to a guy, to a coach, I would say.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Dofan, where do you go with this idea? Do you need to blend them? How does one maintain separate disciplines? I know you're doing multiple ones a day.
I don't think you should, Vincent. I don't think that is right for every martial artist. I think, and I would go out on a limb and say I don't think that's right for most martial artists. And I'm not trying to say that you or I or Sensei Suino or Sensei Legacy or Coach Camejo are special, but I think you have to live a martial arts lifestyle if you're going to pursue multiple martial arts. If you're a recreational person or a hobbyist, you should just stick with one and just get as good at that as you possibly can, in my opinion, right? I stand to be corrected. But if you are going to delve around, I think you should find ones that have similar cultures and communities. Like we have a big community of martial artists. Like I don't really need to go outside of that. If I want to learn Calais or Eskrima, I'm going to go talk to Johan Skelberg, right? Like we have this community of people around us now, and they're all very like-minded. So I would say to people, don't go from like, a traditional judo dojo and then go to some other thing where the culture and the coach and the people are totally different. Like, you come from a clean place where people have a certain code of conduct. Try and find another place with that's a different art that has a similar code of conduct and similar cleanliness and similar. That's just my opinion, right? But I think probably not everybody should.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll just chip in quickly. I know for me, like I didn't want another martial art until I knew I was training my karate every day. And that's a habit that it took me years to really hone. And I really like that idea that it's not for everybody. Coach, is there anything you want to add since we've been around the horn on this? Did any of these ideas make you think of anything new or interesting, or anything you agree or disagree with?
Well, you hear all the older masters. They're very experienced people in the arts, and I think that they cover all that stuff. So um, um, I just love what I do, and yes, I live a martial arts lifestyle. That's just what I do for a living. I don't have any other job. This is what I do. So that's probably why I'm able to practice all these other arts, and I don't get out of these three things that I do, right? So it's I don't practice karate, I don't practice taekwondo or any other art. I just focus on the three arts that I teach in my academy, right? So kickboxing, Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Again, we help certain students who like to fight mixed martial arts, and that's a specific thing, but it's not a program that we offer in that academy. Okay, so it's like I say, a student will approach me and say, you know what, I want to fight in a mixed martial art event. I will, love to get some help, and then we just make everything possible for him to get ready for that. So we're not an MMA school. That's what I'm trying to say. We are a family-oriented academy that teaches certain arts, and luckily for me, I can dedicate my life to this. I don't have to do any other job. This is what I do for a living, right? So.
Right on. And then one more quick question, and I'll ask you first, and then we'll go to Sensei Suino. This is something that's come up a few times on the show, and just help us understand when you're training the difference between Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu and BJJ, what that looks like, how those are separated.
So, look, in my opinion, the beginning of all these arts, Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, they were all a self-defense art. Okay. And once you train in self-defense, you don't necessarily have to have an opposition the entire time, because you're doing strikes, right? You're doing strikes, you're doing throws, you're doing, it's more than just a little bit of grappling on the ground, right? So I'm not putting anything on any art. I'm just saying that in the self-defense, there are strikes, and we sort of train without resistance, so we can think of it as a kata. Okay, it's a dual kata. So I do my technique, you allow me to do my technique so I can practice that technique. But in an event that you need to use it, you are prepared to use it, right? So there's less resistance in the traditional jiu-jitsu than it is in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Because in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, we don't use strikes. Well, in the new Brazilian jiu-jitsu, not the Brazilian jiu-jitsu that was created by the Gracies. And like I said at the beginning, the art was a self-defense art, which had a lot of grappling in it, but it was a self-defense art. And to give it more popularity, it slowly turned into a sport. But not every academy is a sport academy, right? I just also want to say that. But it's the popularity on the BJJ nowadays is the sport part. And it's because, yes, you do a little bit of dual kata because you're practicing your technique and your partner, but then it's time to roll. When it's time to roll, now you have a partner in front of you that is resistant. Okay, so once you have that opposition, is when you actually have to have a refined technique to be able to defeat this opponent, right? So because there's no strikes, right? So once you have strikes involved, it's a different story. And again, to me, the difference of what I offer is in the Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, we train with a partner that doesn't do an opposition. It's not resisting. So technically, they grab you, you get out of the hole, they attack you, you escape the attack. But there's not a huge opposition. Okay. And then in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, again, you practice a little bit with your partner, and then eventually there is that big opposition where you had to,
I really appreciate that clarity. Sensei Suino, is there, anything you want to add? Being a 6th Dan in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and also ranked in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm ranked in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know what the appropriate joke is. But I've trained enough in both to know that I really like what Sensei Camejo just said about training in Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, and in what we do, Nihon Jiu-Jitsu, it's the same thing. Everything's kata, right? Now at the far cutting edge, we do what we call real-time Jiu-Jitsu, where you get continuous attack and defense from a standing position, strikes, but it's still all agreed upon, right? It's like randori in judo. It's not shiai, right? It's just like a play. But rarely do we work under resistance. And if you watch stand-up jiu-jitsu under resistance, it looks horrible, right? Or it flops to the ground and then it looks like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So to me, it's a continuum, right? To me, it's a continuum. And one thing I've been studying a lot the last 2 years is how the principles and the movements of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and stand-up Jiu-Jitsu and Judo are similar. They arise from the same power sources. The body only can move so many ways. It's a fascinating study. So yeah, there's a culture difference, but they're a spectrum. They're a continuation to me of human martial arts.
Right on. Thanks so much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, we ask that you subscribe and hit that like button. We're really happy you're listening or watching. And if you're listening on a podcast, like I always say, I hope your drive's going great or whatever you're baking is tasty. But if you're watching tonight on Zoom in real time, we're so happy you're here. I was talking to my fiance before the show about how excited I am to do these episodes every time because of this. We're writing a book of the living history of martial arts. We just happen to be doing it on video. And I think when I started martial arts 31 years ago, those books meant so much to me that described the practitioners. And now we get to do it through video. So the reason we're excited you're here is because you can ask questions on the chat button down below. And that's going to be lit up by Jesse, who's behind the scenes tonight. And we want your questions to come in. And if they aren't rat shit questions, we will pass them on to the professor. And I always get the privilege of briefly introducing Sensei Randy Dauphin, Sensei Nicolas Suino, and Hanshi Gary Legacy. And all I want to say is, I miss you, gentlemen. I love you all three so much. We train together, we laugh together, we cry together, and my life isn't what it is without the three of you in it. We've talked about how if you offered me $1 billion to never talk to you again, I'd tell whoever offered me that to do that. You in my life means more than anything. And I'm just really grateful for that because I'm not sure everybody has that. And I know many of the people on the call do and understand exactly what I'm talking about. So I love my job. I love that I get to travel for it, but I do miss you three. And I'll give it to you, Sensei Dauphin.
Thanks, Sean. And for the record, Sean does most of the crying and me and Sensei Legacy.
Absolutely.
I'm a crier. I'm really excited to have Coach Camejo on here. He's the program director at Therien Orleans. That's in the World Kobudo Federation under Hanshi Therien. He holds a first-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Professor Fernando Zulick. I hope I said that right. He also has a fourth-degree black belt in Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, as we were just discussing. That was certified by the Therien Jiu-Jitsu board members at the World Kobudo Federation. He's the head instructor and coach of the Therien Gringo Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Program. He's also competed. Coach Camejo has won gold at the 2008 World Kobudo Grappling Championships in France and a silver at the 2014 Ontario Provincials. That was when he was a purple belt. He's a black belt now. He's also a kickboxing instructor since around 2013. And serves as the coach of the Therien Orleans kickboxing and MMA fighters. I always like to provide a few thoughts. Coach Camejo, Sensei Suino, and Sensei Legacy and we've often taught at similar events like Capital Conquest up in Lévis, Quebec. And it was in Lévis, Quebec where I first met Coach Camejo. And it was after the event was done, we found each other sitting at tables just a few feet away. He was there with his wife and his lovely daughter. And it was just instantly really fun conversation, lots of laughs, lots of good food, talking about martial arts. And, martial arts bonds you in that way. Today, I spent a little bit of time and looked at some videos and did a little bit of reading. And one of the things that really struck me was I found a video where Coach Camejo was having his first 3 black belts graded. And one of those is actually a good friend of ours. It's Bobby Ledessour, who's one of Coach Camejo's very first black belts. And that was really good. I liked the way they were graded. But the one thing that stuck out to me was you could just really tell, one, the room was packed. And those people really cared about each other. When they got their belts, that room erupted. People were so happy for those 3 gentlemen getting their black belts. And I also want to say that you could just tell how passionate Coach Camejo was. He's a bit at a loss from words because he was feeling emotional. And I think that's a good thing. I think you have that bond with your students, you train with them. It's not an easy path to get anybody to a black belt in any real martial art. And seeing that and seeing how that, just that inside view of seeing you grade your first 3 black belts, the words that you said, the tone in the room. I really loved it. A lot of gyms should wish they could have something like that. And that's my introduction for Coach Camejo. And I'm really excited to just have a good chat, hear your story, where you came from and what's going on. So thanks for coming on, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sensei Dauphin. So Coach Camejo, let's start with the question I ask everybody on the show. What was it like for you growing up, and what brought you into your first martial arts club or gym or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as some people think I'm Brazilian, by the way, I am not. I am Cuban. And yes, growing up in Cuba, we actually have to fight, or you get bullied your entire life. All right, so fighting was part of a regular day, if I could put it that way. So I was as a kid, my brother always kept me awake to watch boxing, because boxing, as you probably know, is one of Cuba's national sports. It's boxing and baseball. So, but you know, Cuba is also well known by producing good judo people and good wrestling. So it was natural for me to be interested in practicing one of these arts. But I loved watching judo. Okay, my brother wanted me to watch boxing, but I love watching judo. So eventually, when I was old enough, I went to the judo academy, but there was no space for more students. I went 2 years in a row, and they kept on sending me to the wrestling mats. But let's just say that strong smells. Um, um, I don't like strong smells, you know. So and that wrestling gym was really like not for me. Okay, so I ended up not doing wrestling, and one day one of my good friends um, actually told me, what about you come with me to the boxing academy? So I went to the boxing academy, and I was boxing, but my mom couldn't know about it because I was doing Olympic weightlifting, and she didn't like me to box. She didn't want me to get punched on the head. You know, every mother wants to protect the kid. But I did box, and that allowed me to learn how to defend myself, and that's how I started in martial arts. As a matter of fact, I did 2 weeks of karate when I was 9. 2 weeks, but I I don't know. I can't remember what happened, but I just stopped doing. Over there was let's just say we don't pay for a membership, because in Cuba sports and education and all that is free. But if like in the judo academy, for instance, if there's no more space, you're not in, right? So yeah, so probably the karate just was some sort of a short-term program, and you know I was there for 2 weeks, and the program sort of shut down. I don't know. It was I was too young to remember. It was 9, I guess, and I didn't even have a uniform, so it didn't really matter too much to me. So yeah, that's how I started in, getting interested in martial arts, because you know you had to fight. So if you're gonna fight, you might as well win, right?
Yes.
So we're going to go around the horn on this question, but I will start with you, Coach Camejo. We've talked about this a little on the show, but do you think in retrospect that being bullied was maybe even a good thing, or do you think it's something that you wish never happened? So many people who end up in the martial arts, myself included, you know, that's part of their story. What do you think about that, especially as we shift culturally to a place where, you know, people are being made to feel safer?
You know, that's a good question, because I never thought about it, simply because you know, you grew up in that environment, you never have, you never think about it. You thought of it as a normal thing. Kids do that, you know, and they did that back in the day, and they still do it. So for us, the difference was that there was no zero tolerance on you know, violence in school. So you know, whatever happened in classroom, you could fix it in the parking lot, right? So we would go as soon as you get out of the school. It was, you know, fight was on. So it was tough. You know, not everybody was not everybody was fighting back. Some people actually stood up for those that couldn't fight back. And the bullying wasn't always physical. The bullying was uh, mostly verbal with most
Right.
kids. But sometimes, you know, at some point it gets physical, and that's when you realize, you know what, I need to learn how to defend myself, and yeah, that's how it started for me.
Right on. I'll just chip in real quick. You know, I was talking with a friend about this today after my jits class, and we were talking about how both of us were afraid to fight, but I was never actually afraid of the person who wanted to fight me, even though I was bullied a lot. I just wish I could have fought. Like I needed something that taught me how to fight. And so I'll just say openly tonight, I am glad I was bullied because I'm not sure I'd have found karate if I wasn't. And karate's ended up being the basis for the best life I could have imagined. So sometimes, you know, in French, we say un mal pour un bien, a bad for a good. Sensei Dauphin, where do you go with this? You know, I know that you're very strict with your policies about bullying and you run a real tight ship in the dojo, but how do you feel about the idea that maybe it can be a good thing?
Well, the thing I don't like about bullies is not necessarily the physical altercation, because the pain goes away fairly quickly. We're martial artists, we know that. You know, we get hit, we get choked, it happens. I don't like, I don't think it's good for youth to feel afraid when they're walking around, when they have to go to a place every day. They have to go there. They are required to go there, and they're afraid to go there, and they live with that fear. Or when somebody bullies them and hurts them in front of everybody, now they're embarrassed, and now they have to go to that place and feel embarrassed all the time. That's why I don't like bullies, because they try and make you feel afraid, and they try and embarrass you. It's the same. I don't like thieves. That's the same. They're trying to take something that they didn't earn, right, from somebody who did earn it. I just don't. I don't like bullies. I don't like thieves, and I don't like liars, because I think they're all cut from the same cloth. But you know, my background, Sean, is my family was like upper lower class, bumping up against lower middle class, right? so and I'm from Windsor, and it's a bit of a rougher town. Like Windsor is known to be a bit of a rougher town. So yeah, I wouldn't say I ever got bullied, but there was lots of confrontation in my youth through grade school and high school. Lots of it, like weekly. And I guess the good thing for me, if you're asking me, is when I came to the dojo with Sensei Legacy, I wasn't really good at much, but I think I was a good student, and I think I was fairly tough. So when people were smacking me around, I could stand back up over and over again and keep taking it. And then maybe I learned the lessons a little deeper than the people who only got popped one time and gave up.
Thanks, Sensei. Hanshi Legacy, where do you go with this idea that there could be a benefit to having been bullied, or do we just never want that to happen?
Well, that was absolutely what happened to me. I've got just a very short story. What it was my family spoke French and English, and we moved from New Brunswick to Quebec. And at that time, there was a heavy dislike for English people. And one day I heard a ruckus. I just came running outside, and my brother was fighting two guys that just happened to be twins. Their dad was there, their mother, and they're cheering their sons on to beating my brother up. He just grabbed one, threw it in a snowbank, punched the guy a couple of times in the neck, And then he turned around to face the other guy, and the dad was going to come out to help him. And my dad stepped in front of him and he said, if you go there, we're going to have to do it. I had just run up from the house. I was 7 years old, right? That scared the shit out of me. How do you do that? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do when you're 6? That has been in my mind my entire life. As soon as when we're 8 years old, we're French, but we could speak English, right? That's what peeved me off. So we moved the next year because it was happening like once a month. So as soon as I got to Ontario, I started training myself when I got old enough, you know. But as soon as I heard there was a karate club in our neighborhood, I went.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely the reason why I took martial arts. I remember thinking, this is not going to happen in my family.
Yep.
So sometimes bullying is the driving force.
Absolutely. And again, I don't want to make this about me, but I'm glad you got bullied. Like, put it bluntly, and I'm sorry that it happened, but I'm glad it happened. Sensei Suino, where do you go with any of this?
Yeah, man. Guys, sounds like a similar story. You know, I grew up in a real mixed neighborhood, and I had to fight my way to and from school all through elementary school, and I didn't want to, right? I was a soft, creative kid, and I just wouldn't want to be left alone. I hated that fear that Randy talks about, and I don't think that was good for me. I don't think the bullying's good. I think our response to it is good, right? How we use that to rise out of it. You know, like we say, right? That hard times make hard men make good times make soft men make bad times. It's a cycle. And, you know, that's true in our lives too. We face adversity, we figure out how to face it, right? Overcome it. That makes us stronger and better. But there are probably a lot of people that never fulfilled their potential because they were bullied or lived in fear. So I'm against bullying. I'm pro having a very positive response to it, if that makes any sense.
Makes all the sense in the world. Sensei Camejo, just a quick question that's only for you. Talk a little bit about what you see as the pros and cons of the Cuban system. You know, I visited there, mostly resorts, but I've gotten off of the resorts and been through the towns, and I think it's a stunning place, but I didn't grow up there culturally. And, you know, what are the pros and cons of having a system where you get to go do what you want for free, but maybe you don't get to do what you want because it fills up? Was that a benefit or a disadvantage?
So look, that's a, this is a it somehow it always going to turn into a little bit of political in these questions because it's just the way it is. That's the system. The system is they do that because it's political, right? But I want to tell you something. When I was a kid, the people before me and a couple of maybe one generation after me um, still had those benefits. Um, I think that after that, um, it's not longer what it used to be.
Mm.
It's no longer what it used to be. Before, you used to have academies everywhere, and there was a lot of resources for the students, you know, gloves and uniforms and this and that. That there's nothing. So I think that it what it used to be is no longer now. So I don't see any advantages of that system anymore. That's why you don't see dominance anymore in any of those sports. You see one athlete that is a star, but you don't see what it used to be before. Before you used to have, I don't know, let's say 10 athletes in boxing, and maybe 5 of them will get a gold medal in whatever it was in the world championship or Pan Ams. The Cubans would go to the Pan Ams, and maybe 1 out of 10 would lose in the Pan Ams, maybe 2. But now it's like it's it's no longer what it used to be. So it's the um, if I'm if I might say, is the system doesn't invest the same amount of money they used to invest in this sort of things. Yeah, and that goes for many other things in there as well. But again, if I continue with that, it's going to turn a little political. It's not my thing.
Right on. Well, without getting too political, talk to us about your path, because, you know, we've gotten to the point where you've done some boxing, you've done some wrestling, and then you tried the karate for a little. So talk about your martial arts path to where you arrived in Canada, but also if there were any challenges coming from a communist country to this.
Sorry to cut you off. Just to make a correction there, I did not wrestle. I just didn't.
Oh, you.
I went to the wrestling match because that's where they had openings, but the smell was so strong I never actually get to train. All right, so that was my wrestling career. It was at the door. That was it.
Mm-hmm. So then what led you to your next martial arts, or what led you to Canada?
Okay, so like I say, at some point, I mean, I will say I was lucky. I was lucky that I saw, let's just say, I projected myself in the future, and I didn't see me going anywhere where I was. So I had an opportunity to come to such a great country, and I came. And I gotta tell you that I have to say that, you know, it is very cold. I don't love the cold, but I look, this is a beautiful country. I got to love this country for what it is. The opportunities that this country has offered me, and you know, everything I forged my family here. The martial arts part, I'll tell you this. It was because of my wife.
Mm.
There you go. So my wife was one of Mr. Therien's top students. I can grade it. She's a fifth degree black belt and certified as a Shihan. But before she got to that level, I met her when she was just getting her third or her third degree, I believe. Yes, she was getting her third degree when I met her. And when I saw what they were doing at the Therien school in Vanier, the main school. Oh, sorry. Let me get back into her a little bit. We said that she was, or I said she was, or she is one of Mr. John Therien's higher ranked students. But before that, do you guys know Hanchi Alansai?
Mm-hmm.
Very well.
So she is a second degree black belt in Goshindo Jiu-Jitsu on the Hanchi Alansai. So she was his Yuki for many of his tours, and eventually she stayed in Canada, or she came to Canada and stayed here. So going back, the first time I walked up the stairs of the Vanier dojo back in the day, when I saw what they were doing, it was a combination of everything: the boxing, the kicks, the throwing, the little bit of ground fighting. And the one part I didn't talk at the beginning of when you were asking about the difference between the Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu and the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that in Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, we also have a sparring part where we call it sport Jiu-Jitsu. There's striking. So light strike to the head, hard strikes to the body, leg kicks, throws, and then ground strikes as well. So it's a super light version of MMA, if you want to call it that way. Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, sign me up. I'm in it, you know. And then right away she got me all set up, and you know, that's it. She was the one that showed me the light in this part.
Absolutely love that. I know Hanchi Legacy has a question. Hanchi, I want to throw it to you.
Well, I'm the basic outsider on jiu-jitsu here. I just had a couple of quick questions. Um, I was just wondering if you could tell me, are you saying Can-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu?
Can-Ryu.
Okay, is that a person's name?
Can for Canada, Ryu for style. I believe that's what that stands
Okay,
for.
I was misunderstanding. Can-Ryu as in Hagashiona. So that's a question I had. And the other thing I wanted to ask was if, like Sensei Suino was saying, that you know uh, the moves and styles are pretty limited in jiu-jitsu. There's only so many things that you can do. Why is it that, as opposed to the original Japanese jiu-jitsu, that other jiu-jitsu styles became very famous, like South American jiu-jitsu, and how did they manage to do different styles? Is it different approaches, or how
I,
did that
I
happen?
believe that what Nick Suino was talking about is that the body can only move in certain ways, right?
Yeah,
So many different ways. That doesn't mean that that you have like a rule for the amount of techniques that you can actually come up with. So if you look at a human body, you if you start from the fingers, you have finger locks all the way, see, wrist locks and elbow locks and then shoulder locks, and you know, then you have the neck locks and chokes and leg locks, and you know, the different positions and twisting, and it can go in many different ways. So then it comes with the guy grabs you this way, the guy grabs you this way, the guy is coming at you this way, he's attacking you with this punch, with this kick. So that's where all these different techniques and style. So that style, look, for what I've seen, I'm not an expert on anything else but what I do. I don't even want to call myself an expert. I just, like I said, I love what I do, and I try to focus on my students and try to pass on the message as good as I can. But for what I've seen and a lot of the jujitsus I've seen around, they call different names, and I don't know exactly what that means, but at the end of the day, they're very similar one from the other, right? So when you come to a self-defense jiu-jitsu, most of them are very similar. I was looking at some of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu self-defense technique from Helio Gracie, and I see a lot of similarities with what we do. So I look at some other very old Japanese Jiu-Jitsu techniques, and they're also very similar to what we do. So at the end of the day, it's jiu-jitsu. It's an art of self-defense, right? So you will adapt it to your in this case, when we call it Can-Ryu, is Canadian style of jiu-jitsu. It's adapted to the Canadian life, the Canadian population. Again, this is what I understand in what I do. So again, I mean, yes, the body just can move in certain ways, but the attacks are come from different ways. Plus the throws that you can do, the kicks you can do, the punches you can do, the redirection of the body, the locks you can do to the body. So that's what it makes the interesting. And again, some people have preferences. Let's say some let's say someone like Mr. Suino, for instance, he's done judo and some traditional martial arts, so he can actually easily combine his judo's abilities with some of the other traditional martial arts. Not that he doesn't do jiu-jitsu as well, but what I'm saying is that someone that does, let's say, has a good judo background and let's say karate background, so he's a sensei in karate and a sensei in judo, he can actually do a combination of these two arts, and it's still going to have possibly a good self-defense system. But what usually is, think of the two wolf, right? So the good one and the bad one. In this case, they say this wolf is a karate and a judo, but he loved karate more than judo, right? So he will be using more karate techniques than the judo techniques, right? But if the other guy is the opposite, they'll be using more judo techniques than karate techniques. And that's, I guess, that's where the styles differ a little bit. I will guess. I'm not the biggest expert on this, but let's ask the other guys to see what they think.
Great. Let's ask them. Sensei Suino?
Yeah.
Sure. What specific question, Sean? Can you reframe it for me?
Well, Hanshi, let's go back to you so we can get at after what you just heard, what you're specifically wondering.
Yeah, well, it was your question, Sensei Suino, that, or your statement that your body can only be moved so many different ways. Let's see if we can't clarify it by telling me what the difference is between the original Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Or is it just the same thing with a different name? I mean, like he says, you only have fingers, hands.
Well, I'm not an expert in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, but the common understanding of it is that it's primarily ground work, no striking, submissions, holds, right? Grappling on the ground. Old school Jiu-Jitsu, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, my understanding was it was primarily a standing martial art. In fact, the teachers that I've had say that most of it came from what they call Yoroi Kumiuchi, which is battling in armor. And the question was that they were trying to solve early on was, what happens when you have all this armor weighing you down and you lose your weapons? Your sword breaks, your opponent steals your halberd. Now, that's how a lot of those fighting techniques got started, supposedly historically. And you see it in the old kata, Goshiki no kata and so forth. So this is a very long conversation, but
Oh, that's good.
For me, when I try to sum it up in a nutshell, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is primarily standing self-defense, right? Against strikes, wrist grabs, chokes, bear hugs, that kind of thing. It has a ground component, but the ones I studied didn't get deeply into it. And then you got BJJ, which is primarily groundwork, and I'll just put one caveat in there. There are some styles in between, including like Kashiwazaki Judo, which is really good on the ground and comes out of the jiu-jitsu environment as well. So that's why I call it a spectrum, because depending on how you turn the camera, right, you see it all the way from that old historic stand-up fighting with armor on, all the way to modern rolling sport judo, sport jiu-jitsu without strikes. It's a big picture.
Sensei Suino, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, or Coach Camejo, or you, Sean, you might know too. Kano Sensei took a lot of the really dangerous stuff out. And in my mind, Helio Gracie put a bunch of it back in. Like a bunch of the really dangerous stuff that Kano didn't want to happen. The Gracie family said, well, we're putting it back in.
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that Kano took a lot of dangerous stuff out once he decided to make his system a sport, and that's what helped internationalize it and make judo so popular for a long time.
Also, Hanshi Legacy, there's a video I'll send you after, and I'm just saying this one out loud. If you type in 1912 Jiu-Jitsu demonstration online, it's two Japanese men, and everything starts standing, but they end up down in arm locks, they end up down in wrist locks, they end up down in some leg locks. But like Sensei Suino's talking about, primarily it's to get back up again and to not be staying long on the ground. So a lot of the arm bars will be from one knee, not quite knee on belly, but that kind of idea. And then that's the end of the technique. Whereas definitely once it becomes more sporting, you might want that side control where you're just down on the ground because you're not as worried about getting kicked in the head by someone's buddy. And so I think that if you actually look at that 1912 video, it's shocking how similar it is to modern day, what I've seen in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, but very much in BJJ if you start standing. The only exception being that when you get to the ground, you don't really want to live there as much, even if you're the aggressor. Whereas in a more ground game BJJ, if you're the aggressor, you're happy to stay on top on the ground, or even on bottom if you're locking up an ankle or something. Whereas in those older demos, which is more Japanese, it's like, yeah, right, but you do not want to be really down for that long. It's a really cool video. And it's just like one self-defense leading to a grapple submission after another. Hachi or Renchi Kameo, I saw you kind of nodding along with that video. That's one you're familiar with.
Yeah, I've seen that video before, and yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, the Japanese jiu-jitsu used to cover everything. Like in my opinion, it was everything: punch, kicks, throws, and then legs attacks, and the little bit of ground. And yes, I also agree with Mr. Suino when he was saying that eventually Kano just made it a sport. The reasons we can go back, and the reasons might be other reasons as well, because when the Japanese were conquered by the English, all those martial arts that were problematic for the army, like it could have been used as a weapon technically. They sort of abolished that. So judo became a sport. It wasn't really that dangerous. It was just like a school sport activity, right? So that's how slowly it was like that. And then yeah, that's how it started. Like the person that teach the Gracies was a black belt in judo, and we can go down that path, but it's a long story too. But yeah, it's different. It's a different story.
Well, right on. So before we get to your 10 questions that we like to ask all our guests, we had a question come in from Daniel Belisle, who said, "Is Fake Alain your favorite student?"
He's a funny guy. Yeah, I love all my students. I don't have a favorite student, even though that I love Fake Alain too.
Okay, right on. Is there a story behind Fake Alain, or is he actually a real person?
So yeah, no, it's a story behind Fake Alain. Fake Alain, what happened was, um, I have a student which his name is Alain, but Dan, which is his name, Fake Alain, his name is Dan. He just joined the gym like recently, right? And he came from a different academy, and he was already a four-stripe white belt. So it was a class where it was mostly white belts. So I used him as a Yuki, but before I used him, he was in the line. So I call him so I can use him as a Yuki. So I call him Alain, right? And he looks around and he's like, I don't know who he's calling. It's not me, but he's looking at me, right? See, you Alain, come over here. So he looks around. He's like, well, I guess I'm Alain now. So it was a funny thing that day. He's like, my name is Dan, but yeah, you can call me Alain if you want. Yeah, and from that day on, this is Fake Alain. We had a little laugh about it that day.
Right on. Are you ready for your 10 questions?
Sure.
Great. We ask that you answer impulsively, but then if you want to break open your answer, feel free. Question number 1. What is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
I don't know. I don't know. If we're talking jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I would say Kimura. If we're talking the standing up, I will say definitely my my uppercuts. Yes, yeah, I love my uppercuts. If we're talking about throws, I will say Yoko Tomonagi. So it's I'm not sure exactly what to say.
Right on. Who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
Okay, that goes by eras. Back when I was a kid, the guy that I used to admire was Alfredo Duvergel. Was a Cuban boxer that had a super nice style of fighting. Very lots of movement, make the guy miss a lot, and they used to call him the octopus. I used to admire that guy like tons. Then then when I came to Canada, obviously I have great figures that I admire a lot. Hanchi Alansai is one of those. Kyoshinon Beauchamp, I adore that guy. Hanchi John Therien, I admire him tons. I could go with a long list, but I will say that possibly the person that I admire the most in martial arts is my wife. She's uh, she's the one that set the example for me, not just at the beginning, but even every day. Every day, she's always on top of the way I should be leading the team. And I guess that's one of the reasons for what this academy works so well. It's because you know her her guidance, I would say.
Right on. Who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
Oof. I no I I don't wanna get into that because no, it's a deep question, and there's too many great martial artists in the world, so we can mention one person just like that. It would be for me, it would be not fair
Mm.
to do that.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your training?
My training, not so much. My teaching, it will be to see my daughter getting her black belt.
Mm. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
I will pass on that one.
Do you have a favorite film and television martial artist, even if they're not great at real martial arts?
Well, I love watching Jackie Chan. Actually, I love watching Jackie Chan. I it's he's funny. He's good at what he does. And yeah, I love watching Jackie Chan. To be honest with you, I don't know. That's the first person that came to my head.
He's good. He's a good
He's,
martial.
he's great.
Yeah.
Um, is there a martial artist living or dead in all time that you'd want to train with the most?
I will say if there's one person that I would love to train with one day, if I still alive and he's still alive, I think it will be Hickson Gracie.
Mm. If everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit that you've gotten from martial arts, whether they train or not, what benefit would you be giving them?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, if everybody in the world could have the greatest benefit you think martial arts has given you, what would it be?
Confidence, I would say. Confidence. Yeah, confidence will be a great benefit that martial arts will give anyone.
Mm. And the last two questions come as a pair. What is your greatest achievement? What is your greatest regret?
I know what my greatest achievement is my daughter. I tell you 100%. That's my greatest achievement, hands down. Regret, I don't necessarily have any regrets, simply because I believe that everything that happens to me happens for a reason. So, and because of that, I am where I am today, and I am who I am today. So, yeah, I don't think I have any great regrets.
Right on. Thanks for those 10 questions. So now let's get back a bit to your story. So we glanced over a little. At what age did you come from Cuba to Canada? And how did you then go from that to running your own school?
Yeah, I believe I was 26 years old. I came November 10, 2001, 2 months right after the attack in New York. So everybody in the plane was scared, and to be honest with you, it was my first time in the plane, my first time in Canada, That's another little story. And when I left Havana, it was 32 degrees Celsius, and I arrived in Canada with -3 degrees, so 35 degrees difference. So it was a big punch on the nose right there. Yeah. So look, it was great to see the first snow of the year and all that, but 15 days later, you were like, enough with this snow, you know. But it was great. Um, so I was 26, like I said, um, and when I joined Therien Jiu-Jitsu Kickboxing and the Vanier Dojo, um, I just wanted to train and compete. Um, I was trying to compete as much as I could for as long as I could. But as a brown belt, Mr. Therien gave my wife and I the opportunity to open the Therien Jiu-Jitsu Kickboxing Orleans Academy. I was we opened the academy in October, and I tested for my black belt already in November. So technically, when I opened the academy, well, I was still a brown belt. It wasn't long after that I was already a black belt. But my wife was already a third degree, and she soon after she got promoted to a fourth-degree black belt. So that was the beginning. Again, it was 16 years ago when we first opened the academy, and it was great. We like every other academy, at the beginning is starts slow, but next thing you know, we just like grow too fast.
Mm.
So we were in need of more space, and because we opened an academy, so two different dojos were in the same spot. So it was Pat Out Kung Fu and Therien Jiu-Jitsu and Kickboxing. So we were sharing the location days and times, and it was a great relationship between Stefan and Pat Note and us. We still friends up to today. We had an amazing time working together there, and if you ask me, would you do it again if you were asked to do that with him again? I would say hands down, 100%. To start with him was a great choice, and it was a fantastic experience. But again, we outgrow the place, and we had the need on taking on our own adventure. So we opened this academy where we are right now. And we've been here for 12 years now. 12 years now.
Amazing. We're going to go around the horn on this because a lot of people listening and watching are young teachers or people who might be considering doing their own thing. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to somebody who's thinking of starting their own academy, club, dojo?
Well, don't quit your job. Keep your job and give your 100% in your academy. That's what I did for a good 7 years straight. I was working construction, winter, summer, spring, all year round outside. And my wife and I had our jobs, and we had the academy. We pushed until it was time for me to let go of my job and just focus on this at 100%. I find that I don't want to say this with specific numbers, but there's a high percentage of martial arts schools that open up and then they end up closing before the 5 years mark.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very well, any business really is tough to survive, but number one, you have to love what you do. You have to love what you do. You don't have to be great, but you have to be good at what you do. And if you're thinking um, about yourself or your needs rather than your students' needs, that's where everything goes down. I work for them. I'm their instructor, but I need to teach them what they need. You know what I mean? It's not what I want to work on. You know, what I need is a different story of what they need, right? So, to me, anyone who decides to open a martial arts school, number one, don't quit your job, keep your job, and give you 100% in your academy, and take care of your students. Those are the ones that are gonna, you know, help you stay open.
Awesome. Sensei Suino, what's the one piece of advice you'd give somebody who wants to open an academy, dojo, club, whatever?
Don't do it, man. What's the one piece of advice I would give somebody? Find a mentor, right? Like Coach Camejo, right? He had his wife was involved, but also Hanshi Therien, right? It was kind of a mentor guiding him, a guy that understands business pretty well. The problem is if you're really young and impulsive, you're probably not going to take the good advice. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that. I know when I was young, I just wanted to do my own way. I still kind of like that. But I would say this, you can be a good martial artist or a great martial artist. It doesn't mean you're going to be a good dojo owner. There's a big difference. You got to learn how to run a business. And my first dojo never took off because I didn't know anything about running a business. But that was my master's degree, though. So when I opened the second dojo, right, it was a completely different story. I had to learn on the hard, the school of hard knocks. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Right on. Let's go to you, Sensei Dauphin. What's the piece of advice you give to anybody listening or watching about opening a club?
So similar to what Sensei Suino said, like if you're not good at something, don't try and be good at it. Farm it out to somebody who is. So if you can't do accounting, get an accountant. You're not good at marketing, hire somebody who does good marketing. That's on the business side of things. I would lean towards what Coach Camejo said. Don't have a transactional dojo. Don't have one that's based on transactions. Have one that's based on relationships. Build strong relationships with the students that come in. Build strong relationships with the teachers above you and the people below you. Because when times are tough, those relationships are the things that are going to keep people coming back to the dojo. It's going to keep them finding the pennies, nickels, and dimes they need to pay for their membership because they know they're not paying just for themselves. They know they're paying and it's helping everybody in that room when they pay. And that's what I would say. Don't have dollar signs in your eyes and think, oh, if I charge this much, I'm going to buy this car. Like those are the wrong motivations, right? You should be wanting to build people up and pass your passion on to them so that it can keep being pushed forward.
Thanks, Sensei. Hanshi Legacy, what would you say is the one piece of advice you'd impart?
Well, because everyone else pretty well covered it, I would just make sure that you have a good product, that you yourself are prepared to give everything that you have. And when people ask you questions on the floor and that, you have to be prepared. It's not only is it really tough on the business side, if you don't have a good product, people will soon find out. And no matter what good business person you are, if you don't have a good product, it's tough. But on the business side, I'm lousy. I'm a lousy business person.
Coach Camejo, this is a big question and you can answer it however you want, but I'm really loving this conversation and your passion for your students. What's the point of all this? I mean, we're talking about not having dollar signs in your eyes, but so many people in the world are like, well, I need to make as much money as possible. And you're talking about this more as something where you're giving something and you're thinking more about your students than your own training. And what's the point of the martial arts? Like, how does the martial arts make you this kind of person and why should anyone do it?
You at the beginning said that you actually hated bullies, right? Didn't you say that?
Hated which?
Bullies.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And I think that a couple more of us were saying the same thing, right? So my passion, I guess, is I want to show them or give them that confidence that, you know what, You don't have to take anything from the bullies. I'm not, let's just say, I'm not telling anyone to go out there and fight with anybody. I just want to transfer that confidence into them that they can, you know what, walk around with enough confidence that the bullies are not going to even come at them. Because that's, like I say at the earlier on, one thing that anybody in the world should take from martial arts is that confidence. You know, you how can I say, I love transmitting that to them, right? At the same time as I do that, I make uh, great friendships. I have met so many good people through martial arts. It's incredible, and a lot of them are my students. So you have more time with them sometimes than you have with, your daughter or my mom. In this case, she's in Cuba. I haven't have as much time as with my mom as I have with most of these guys here. So you do develop friendships. You develop some sort of a very good brotherhood, I could say too, because I tell you right now, I can turn my back and go visit my family, because they're in Cuba, and I said to them, listen, I need someone to cover for me, and for the time I'm off, I will have all those classes covered. Why? Because I care for them, and they feel that, so they care for me too. So
Thank you. Sensei Dauphin, what's the point of it all? Why be this obsessed?
That's a tough question to answer, Sean. Like for me, there's a lot. There's not one point of it all. There's lots of different points of it all, right? One thing I've said often, for me, it's really important that the benefits I've received from this through martial arts, it needs to be passed forward so other people can get those benefits as well. That's really important for me at this point in my martial arts journey, is just, and you never know who it is that walks in the door. You never know who's going to be the one that bug is going to get into. And yeah, since Legacy and I are leaving Coach Camejo to go to Sensei Suino's dojo tomorrow morning, and all our classes will be covered. This place will run for the entire weekend. The other black belts will come in, they will fill in all the classes, and people will get top-notch instruction without me being here. They will get top-notch instruction, and they will make progress. And when I look at all the kids in here, like, you have a class with 30 kids lined up, I find it really exciting to look at them and go, I wonder which one will be the one, or which ones will be the ones when I'm gone that will be doing all this stuff again. It's just such a curiosity to me. Yeah, an obsession is a good word, Sean. I'm obsessed with it.
Sensei Suino, let's go to you next. What's the point? Why bother? Why put this much time into it?
Here's why. I think martial arts is one of the most important activities that human beings do. I've said that before on this show. It was one of the original personal development systems. Long before Tony Robbins, long before Deepak Chopra, long before Brendan Burchard, you had martial arts, right? Think back to the samurai era. They had to teach people how to fight, and by doing so, they changed people's character. You have to confront death. You have to confront your own weaknesses. And if you stay in it long enough, you realize that you have something to contribute to other people. It's like Coach Camejo said, you're training confidence. Not everything in life leads to the confidence that we have. Not everything in life leads to the clear view that we have. Not everything in life allows us to develop these relationships. My students are my family, right? I think it's the best thing a human being can do. And that doesn't mean that you do that only and that you stop in life. For some of us, it does. But for some people, they use that and they leverage it. They take the confidence, they take the skills, they take the relationships, and they go on and they build on that. So the reason I think we do it is because as human beings, we should live into our highest potential. And this is one of the best ways I know of doing it.
Right on. I'm going to chip in before I go to Hanshi because I don't want to have the last word after him. But You know, the word I like is serenity, because the serenity prayer says, um, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And martial arts is the thing that actively teaches me how to do it. It's not a concept. It's like, here's what I have no power over. Here's what I do. And because of enough time in and enough pressure testing, I tend to be able to learn the difference. And then I sleep well at night. And I get to know who I am and be serene. And also that includes knowing my limits. That's really important because they're expansive, but they exist. And karate just keeps showing me what they are. And so does the ground game. What about you, Hanshi? What's the point of it all? Why bother?
Well, when you came, you relied on the art, right? And it relies on you. You become karate if you stay in it long enough. And without you, I know you're just saying, well, it's just me, but it's not an art until a human being picks it up. And without humans dedicating themselves to the art or to something, whatever that thing is, ceases to live. And we don't want martial arts. We don't want the world without martial arts. It's one of the ways of moving mankind forward. I mean, the entire globe, everybody benefits from martial arts. So it's important. It's something that's very important to all human beings.
Thanks, Hanshi. Coach Camejo, I've never thought to ask this question before, but the way you talk about the past, the way you practically speak about the present, and the way you talk about your students in the future, where do you see, and we are going to go around the horn on this because we've never talked about it, where do you see the arts going in 50 years?
Well, nobody can predict the future. But, you know, I remember Hanchi Legacy saying that you have to have a good product, right? So one thing that have killed many dojos to me is that they remain too traditional. Um, the To me, the art needs to have an evolution. It doesn't have to be a full evolution, but the arts all have to have a little bit of an evolution, right? And it this is just my experience. I'm not saying that one art will be better than the other, or there will be some other new art that will come up, because there's always something new eventually, you know, right? But yeah, the person who actually runs the academy should be open to sort of have a small evolution in the art, right? So if they don't do that, eventually that academy or that art is gonna, you know, uh, again, it's hard to predict the future, but it's what I think it could happen. If you don't keep up with the competition, then eventually you will fail to keep your doors open, right?
Thank you. Hanshi Legacy, where do you see martial arts in 50 years?
I hope nowhere. And as Sensei Camejo says, you don't want to ruin what's been working for 300 years. I hope it doesn't fall into the hands of egoists, and that they understand that something that's lasted this long is good and it's working. Let masters make changes if those changes are necessary. Other than that, the core should remain the same, in my opinion.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Dauphin?
I think I'm just gonna guess. If I look back to, let's just say Meiji Restoration, 1868, how many dojos there were and how many martial arts there were, and where we are now. I'm gonna say 50 years from now, there's gonna be a lot more shitty dojos out there. Like more and more shitty dojos are gonna spring up. And I think in 50 years, there'll still be a handful of core, really diligent, masters people who truly want to do martial arts and not do martial arts games will seek them out, find them, and train with them. So I think in the future, it's going to get harder you're going to have to sift a lot more shit to find a nugget of gold.
Mm.
But the nuggets of gold will still be out there.
Thanks, Sensei Dolphin.
Yeah, classical and traditional
Hanchi?
karate. Yeah, classical and traditional karate. Look for that because it remains the same. It's the base for all martial arts.
I just want to chip in before you, Sensei Suino. I actually think that classical martial arts are going to have a resurgence because I think the benefit of the UFC and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu showing up and all that has shifted people away because YouTube videos get people excited about MMA. Does it work in the ring? And I think what people are going to do is delve into, and I even see this happening with karate, but Sensei Suino, I think especially judo, where people are realizing how amazing and how much is in the classical arts that wasn't necessarily there, including frozen karate and grappling and karate, like manipulations. And I think people are going to, through necessity, dig deeper into the art that they're doing to find the stuff in it that maybe was in it 200 years ago, but when it didn't need to be a life or death art, could be winnowed out as a sport. I really think that that's how those classical arts are not just going to stay alive, but then as the cycle does, re-thrive. That's my take. What about you, Sensei Suino?
Yeah, I don't know if I can predict where they're going to go in the future, but I will say this. Having the classical core values, really good technique, good culture, clean thinking, discipline, respect for your instructors, along with the athleticism that people have now, and they're going to develop. I mean, look at George St. Pierre, and by now, right? I mean, he's a wonderful guy, but he hit his peak, and I'm not saying he couldn't peak again. I'm just saying in terms of his popularity, what, 4 or 5 years ago? And how far has the science come since then? So I don't know. I don't follow it as closely enough now, but imagine somebody with a solid traditional background who then has a supplement of the sport training or the tournament training and has the athleticism and the science, the nutrition, and all that stuff that we have today, or we'll have in 5 years, or the question was 50 years. I mean, you're just going to have cyborgs. And they're not going to be doing shitty martial arts because they're going to get eaten up. The shitty martial arts are going to get eaten up by people that have good martial arts plus athleticism. So I don't know. I think it'd be crazy. My job right now is to try to stay alive that long.
How those stem cells feeling?
Pretty darn good. Look at me.
Amazing. Quick question. Everybody answer in less than a minute because we are winding down. But oh, hold on. I had this written down and then it deleted. Oh, yeah. The word clean came up a number of times tonight. Sensei Dauphin, you mentioned like clean dojo, clean environment. And you just said clean thinking, Sensei Suino, which is a really cool term. So let's go to you. We'll go around the horn and end on you, Sensei Camejo. What does clean thinking mean? What does clean living mean?
You going to me first?
Yep, you first, minute or less.
Here's what I meant by clean thinking. Organized, disciplined thinking, rational, right? Science-based where science matters, culture-based where culture matters, not sloppy thinking. As Randy said, not liars, not cheats, right? So what I meant was just being rational and organized in your thinking, being a decent human being, above board, not evil. That's what I meant by that.
Love that. Hanchi Legacy, what do you think about clean thinking, clean living as regards to it being necessary for a martial artist or anyone?
Well, I imagine the majority of that is important, but I don't think that I don't think anyone can be perfect. So you have different abilities by different persons. As long as you're doing your best, and that's your cleanest. I mean, we're all humans, and like I'm sure that Sensei Camejo is a really, really good jiu-jitsu person, and I would never be able to, belly up to the bar with him.
Thanks, Hanchi. Sensei Dauphin, what do you think about this clean concept?
I think clean means for me two things: effort and discipline. So, your clothing doesn't clean itself. You have to have the discipline and take the effort to put it in the washing machine with the soap and then take it out. And I know my wife right now is like shaking her head, said he doesn't do that. Like that's what Christine's saying right now. But just as an example, right? Like if you want clean technique, you have to be disciplined and put the effort into that technique in the time when you need to put it in, not in the future and not in the past. Now it requires it now. And so I guess it also involves a certain level of consciousness, right? You have to be trying something, like to evolve, to get better, to grow and not be stagnant. Stagnant pond is not clean. Moving water is clean.
Thank you, Sensei. Coach Camejo, what do you think of this concept of clean thinking, clean living, clean anything? Does it matter?
Like Hanchi Legacy said, nobody's perfect, but I think that if you are teaching martial arts, or if you're an instructor in an academy, you have to be a good human being, because being a good human being, you should have a lot of good life concepts, treating people with respect, being clean. By watching your uniform, you don't bring those strong odors that I was talking about those wrestling mats back home, right? You don't also bring any germs on the mats or anything like that. I think that yes, nobody's perfect, but we can definitely try to be good to others. And one of my best friends, I treat him like my brother. He said to me, we're not perfect. We can make mistakes. Let's say you were not nice to someone today, and you went home. It's time to sleep. You have to ask yourself, what did you do wrong today? I was not nice with this person. Guess what I'm gonna do? Tomorrow, first thing tomorrow, as soon as I see this person, I'm gonna talk to this person and tell them, listen, I apologize. I was not nice to you yesterday. How can we fix this? So we have to be able to put the head on our pillow and have a good sleep. And by being a good person, a good human being, you should be able to do that every night. So that's what my idea of clean means. Along with everything else that Sesuino said, and Randy and Mr. Legacy. So I mean, it's this word clean. It's so complex. Depends on which way we put it, right? But that's my thoughts on that.
Right on. I want to just jump on that. I was going to say clean conscience. And there's four things I ask myself every night in bed. Was I fearful? Was I controlling? Was I dishonest? And was I self-seeking, like self-centered? And then the next day make an amend on that, either through an overt apology or just changing the behavior. And that lets me look any man or woman or person in the eye, and because my conscience will be clean and I won't be afraid. And then it will demotivate my encounters, because I won't be trying to unconsciously steal approval or validation. So I really like that concept of falling asleep with a clean head, a clean conscience. What we're going to do now, my friends, is say goodnight. We're going to go around the horn. We're going to start with Hanchi Legacy. We're just going to chat briefly about our time with you. And then the last word will go to you, Coach Camejo. Hanchi Legacy, what do you want to say tonight?
Well, I just want to say that I apologize. I sort of misunderstood that last question. I was thinking of something completely different. Your answers were all great. I want to thank Kiyoshi Camejo for coming. I've learned a lot of things about jiu-jitsu and different ways of doing the martial arts from you. I don't think we've ever met that Capital Conquest, have we? Or like that. So
just from far, we'll never really actually get to sit down and talk.
yeah, well, hopefully next time we can do that. Okay, thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Hanchi. Sensei Suino.
Sensei Camejo, thank you for coming on this show. We've been talking about it for a while, and thank you for all the things you've taught me on the mats at our various seminars we've been to. I know we'll do this again. We'll be able to train together. Of course, I would love to get you to come to Ann Arbor sometime and train with us at JMAC. It's been a great night, man, and I'm so glad you made it here.
Thanks for the invite.
Sensei Dauphin.
I write a lot of stuff, Coach Camejo. You said in the beginning, you said, once you have a resisting opponent, you have to have refined technique. That's going to stick in my brain I'll be contemplating that it's a truism, but it's really interesting and thought-provoking. I like that you loved watching judo. People tried to push you to watch boxing, and you were like, nope, I like to watch judo, and that the stinky mats were a no fly for you when you went to the wrestling gym.
No way.
The whole bullying, and you started martial arts because if you're gonna fight every day, you might as well win. I like that. You gotta fight, you might as well win, right? That makes a lot of sense. It's really nice to just hear you stand up and say that your wife is the one who brought you into martial arts, and you talk really proudly of her, which is really nice to hear, and her relationship with Hanchi Therien and Hanchi Sai. That's awesome that you have that kind of a relationship. I'm proud to have that in my house as well. In your 10 questions, yeah, you couldn't answer the most effective move. You had the Kimura, the uppercut, and Yoko what was it? Yoko
Tomoe.
Yoko Tomonagi.
Yes. You mentioned lots of names too, like Kyoshi Beauchamp. Like, I agree. Great guy, super nice person, and a great martial artist too. But again, most influential, you brought your wife up again. So that's excellent. You wouldn't answer the most influential of all time. That's great. I love that you just, no, I'm not going to. I like that. The next 5 years, see your daughter get her black belt. I've been lucky enough to see 2 of my daughters get black belts. I can't wait for that for you. I can't wait for you to see that. I'll be really happy for you, and I'd like to talk to you about it after it happens, to share some notes. Hickson Gracie, he's definitely up there on my list too. I just like to even just sit and chat with that guy for like an hour. Confidence, that was the same thing Sensei Legacy said. Greatest benefit, Sensei Legacy also said confidence. Greatest achievement, your daughter. For me, it's my kids too. Like, that's such a great thing. One thing that's very subtle, but you said to Sean Benson, can you repeat that question, please? And the word please rolled off your tongue like you say it all the time, which it's really nice to be around a person that's polite, because with Spider-Man terms, with great power, great responsibility, and being polite is always welcome by anyone. Like you said, if you want to open a school, don't quit your job. That's great advice. I never did. I still have my job, and I have a good school. And the last thing I want to say is, you just said, you know, if you're in this position of authority and guiding people and coaching people, that you have to be a good human being. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think you are, and I'm really proud to have had you on the show. Time flew by. It was a great conversation and really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sensei. The time actually just flew by with you, Coach Camejo. And, you know, it reminds me when we trained at Capital Conquest that, you know, I just want to say the way you answered your questions tonight reminds me so much of that training, because while there might have been a specific to do, there was an underlying principle that was actually the more important thing. And I won't get into the specifics because it would bore the listeners, but it's a principle even in my rolling that I've taken with me since that time. And it's so effective. And I just think the way you talk about self-defense in the martial arts as being so primarily important, that makes sense why your principles are so effective, because they're not based on a point. They're based on a submission or a win or something that would actually work. And I just want to say before we go to you for the last word. I don't have the list up right now, but I want to thank everybody who runs the show behind the scenes. We have a team who helps Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat come to you. And I just want to say thanks to them. And I want to say next week, join us for Katie Murphy. I will just leave it at this. She is a 22-time karate world champion. You do not want to miss that show. But Coach Camejo, the last word goes to you. What do you want to say?
Well, I want to say thank you everyone for having me in the show tonight. Honestly, I want to thank Mr. Suino very much for the invite, which I wasn't too excited about at first, but after we talked a couple of times, we trained together a couple of times. I said to myself, he's a great guy. I'm going to do this for him because I honestly don't like talking about myself too much. I prefer to, feel in a good environment with friends, family, and we're going to share some of these stories. And, he provided that environment for me with all this few times that we trained together and stuff. I also, met Randy again. The first time was at that supper after the trainings over there at the convention, and again it was a great night. We got lots of laughing there, wonderful people, and again when I get the invite, I wasn't too excited about it, and then we kept on talking, and I realized, this is going to be a good thing. We're gonna have fun, and we're gonna talk about a bunch of good stuff, and I'm happy I did it.
I guarantee you, everybody that watched this really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Senseis. Thank you, Coach Camejo, and everybody watching. Thank you. We're so glad you're here. Be safe.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.